Hey, this is Scott. Today we're going to take a final look at the Tamron 150 to 600mm G2 lens. If this is your first time to this channel, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. If you want to see more about the build quality, design, and image quality of this lens, be sure to check out my other videos in this playlist. I'll put a link to that on screen now and also down in the description below. So to be fair, I'm sure that this lens will be better off in the hands of a real nature photographer or something like that, which I am not, but I will give you my thoughts about it as I've used it over these past few weeks. For sports or action, I think that this lens can work, but mostly only in ideal situations, just because of the aperture especially. If you want to get that motion stopping shutter speed at 600mm or something like that, you're going to need quite a high ISO, so it depends on which body you're going to be using this with. A lot of new bodies are really good with high ISOs, but still it's going to depend on what you're using it with as far as how well you can use it in those situations. Autofocus speed and accuracy also didn't hold me back in any way, and again, I'm sure you could get more out of this, but again, it will depend on your body too, because that's partially responsible for how well your autofocus is going to perform. Racking from infinity to near focus, this will be a little bit slow, especially at the longer focal lengths, but there are some limiter switches that you can use if you're only going to be shooting things that are relatively close or only things that are relatively far. So this will definitely help out, just so that way if you miss focus or if you lose tracking or whatever, it doesn't have to rack all the way from one end to the other to find that focus again. That will save you a lot of time. Also, if you are thinking about using this with the extenders, it's going to be pretty limited. Even on bodies that will focus with the 1.4 extender, it's going to be slow, and autofocus with the 2x extender only works in live view, and again, that's extremely slow. It's nice that you can do certain things with it depending on what you're shooting, but by no means are you going to be able to photograph any kind of action or anything at all close to that with those extenders using autofocus. Of course, the VC on this lens is really impressive, as it is on all of the Tamron lenses that I've tested, and I think that it's most helpful in stabilizing your viewfinder, which is really necessary, especially to frame semi-tight shots when you're out at 600mm. But if you do want to shoot things that are not moving, so you don't need that motion stopping shutter speed, you can really get some impressive results with this in terms of the VC performance. As far as weight and size go, it's kind of just on that line where it's small and light enough that you can bring this with you fairly easily. It can fit into a lot of backpacks, and it's not bad to handhold. You might not want to do it for a long time, depending on how strong you are, I guess, or what you're shooting. Also, there's going to be, some situations where a tripod or a monopod will be a huge help, but it is small and light enough to do that, although it is definitely not by any means the smallest or lightest lens. So if that's what you're looking for, then you're not going to get it with this, but then again, you're not going to get it with anything in this focal length. Speaking of focal length, while the 150 all the way up to 600mm is at times useful, it's nice to be able to back out that far and catch something if it comes closer. I think that I would have enjoyed this lens a little bit more if that focal length was more restricted. I know there's a lot of lenses on the market in this general focal range, so they have to compete. Again, it is useful when you need to back out because something comes closer or whatever, you want a wider framing or something like that. It's convenient, but still, I would rather have something with a smaller focal range and a more usable aperture. So I did mention a little bit in my image quality video that I didn't get a whole lot of image quality test shots with the extenders and this lens combined. And the reason for that is just I didn't really find myself in the right situations for it. It's been really hot here, and when you're shooting at those longer focal lengths, things like heat waves and stuff can really interfere with your image quality, and they definitely did for me, so I just didn't even bother in a lot of situations. Also, wind is going to be a huge issue at these longer focal lengths, and you're going to need high shutter speeds to combat that. Combine that with a very small aperture, especially using these extenders, and you're going to end up needing a really high ISO to get that to work, and I don't feel like that was a really good test of the image quality, so I kind of gave up on testing the image quality with that. What I did find is that in certain situations, if you really need that focal length, they're usable. Obviously, the 2x extenders quality is not going to be as good as the 1.4, and that's not going to be as good as the lens without anything, but they're not so bad that you can't use them. My opinion would be if you already have the extenders, it could be convenient just to snap it on here sometimes when you really need it, but I would not recommend buying them specifically for this lens. In case you're wondering, the extenders do have a very nice build quality, they feel solid, and I would never worry about actually using them. All in all, I was honestly a little bit confused about who I would recommend this lens for. It's cheap compared to what you could be paying for something in this focal length, but it's not so cheap that it's a kind of lens you can just get for when you might want to use it once in a while. If you're really serious about nature photography or sports photography, it's hard to recommend this, but I would only recommend it because the alternatives are crazy expensive. It can be fun, but it can also be frustrating. In the right situations, you'll get a really nice image quality out of it, there's no question about that, but finding those right situations may be a little bit more difficult and may end up causing you to not enjoy the lens as much as you could. As I said in the beginning of this video though, in the hands of a different photographer, this opinion might be completely different, so don't only take my word on it. On this lens, I would highly recommend you also check out as many other reviews and write-ups and videos about it as you can, and if you have the opportunity, really get your hands on it to try it for yourself before buying it, because it is definitely a unique experience. If you do, however, have any other questions, feel free to leave them down below and I will get back to you and help you the best that I can. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to see more in the future, and as always, thank you for watching.